Okay, y'all. This was from June 8th in the Hindustan Times. LA riots. Can President Trump deploy the National Guard? All about the Insurrection Act. Now, I did a video yesterday in which I touched on how Gavin Newsom is absolutely against this. He would be wresting control of the National Guard from the governor of California. And we all know that he was just salivating to do this in his first term. Remember, I don't want to sensationalize this. I just want to talk about what's actually happening. I don't want people to be scared, but I think it's time. Like, this is terrible. I've been watching. I've been trying to get updates out there. I've been reposting a lot of the footage from that, and it's just disgusting. And we all know that people were encouraging, like the Project 2025 people were encouraging Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act as soon as he got into office. I mean, he should know a lot about it since, he was adjudicated to be an insurrectionist himself. He wanted to deploy the National Guard against Black Lives Matter protests. We know he wanted to do that. Can I just shoot him in the legs? Yeah. So, this is your guy, this fucking guy right here. So, LA riots. Tom Homan wants to deploy the National Guard to LA amid riots. Governor Newsom has pushed back. Who has the authority and what is the Insurrection Act? This is a brief recap. Tom Homan, President Bordazar, announced plans to deploy the National Guard to Los Angeles in response to protests against ICE following immigration raids in the city. Now, LA has about 10% of its population is undocumented immigrants, okay? That's why they're going there. Besides, Trump put out this, you have to do better. We're not even getting Biden's daily quota of deportations. I want 3,000 a day. So it's making these masked assholes scramble to get more and more people locked up. Even children, as we've seen, cuffing children. In a Fox interview, Homan said, "We're making Los Angeles safer." There was nothing wrong with this country until you motherfuckers got into office and you started doing all this shit. Crashed our economy, messed up all of our alliances. Now we have people having meetings about us. Closed door meetings, which we're not invited to because we are country non gratis at this point. California Governor Newsom quickly pushed back, calling Homan's remarks purposefully inflammatory. Of course they are. That's their whole MO here. The federal government is moving to take over California National Guard and deploy 2,000 soldiers. That move is purposely inflammatory and will only escalate tensions, he wrote on X. LA authorities are able to access law enforcement assistance at a moment's notice, so there's no need for this. We are in close coordination with the city and the county, and there's currently no unmet need. The Guard has been admirably serving LA throughout this recovery of the fires. This is the wrong mission, and it will erode public trust. The authority to deploy the National Guard depends on whether the situation is a state or federal matter. State authority. As the Commander-in-Chief of California National Guard, Governor Newsom has the primary authority to deploy the Guard for state-level emergencies, such as natural disasters, riots, or other public safety needs. This is done under state activity duty or Title 32 status, where the state retains control and typically covers the costs. For example, during 1992 Los Angeles riots, Pete Wilson, governor then, deployed the California National Guard to restore order. Federal authority. The President or Secretary of Defense can federalize the National Guard under Title 10 status for national emergencies, homeland defense, or federal missions. This shifts control to the federal government, which then funds the deployment. The President can also invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807 to deploy federalized National Guard units or federal troops. This is done when state authorities are unable to manage the civil unrest or if federal laws are violated. This happened in 1992 when President George H.W. Bush invoked the Insurrection Act to send federal troops to assist in Los Angeles during the riots. Yeah, but that was a little bit different. You have to understand, this is the kind of stuff right here this is the kind of stuff right here that Steve Miller masturbates to this shit. Absolutely does. He masturbates to this shit, thinking that he's gonna. He loves the idea of sending in the National Guard and of federalizing troops. Loves it. All these people. This is the This is the marriage of the evangelical right and MAGA. This is what we get by doing that. You get it? This is what we get. So the California National Guard troops the President Donald Trump deployed to Los Angeles are, in response to protests, can only provide protection and logistical support to immigration agents there, according to Georgetown University law professor Stephen Vladeck. But that changes if the Insurrection Act is invoked. His decision to federalize California National Guard troops and deploy them to Los Angeles puts them in more of a support role, according to a legal expert. On Saturday, he exercised his authority to place National Guard troops under federal command in response to protests over immigration. On Sunday morning, members of the 79th Infantry Brigade began arriving in Los Angeles. But the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 largely prevents federal troops from engaging in civil law enforcement, the law professor said in a newsletter. All these troops will be able to do is provide a form of protection and other logistical support for ICE personnel. Whether that in turn leads to further escalation is the bigger issue, and indeed may be the very purpose of their deployment. There is an exception to Posse Comitatus Act that would allow troops to take a more active role in law enforcement. That's the Insurrection Act. In theory, according to the Brennan Center for Justice, the Insurrection Act should be used only in crisis that civilian authorities can't handle. But the law's requirements are poorly explained and leave virtually everything up to the discretion of the president. You didn't believe us that this shit was going to happen, but here we are. There are at least 3 reasons to be deeply concerned about his hasty actions on Saturday night. First, the presence of federal troops raises the risk of escalating violence. Second, there's the possibility that the deployment of National Guards, even in a limited manner, sets up more aggressive responses to similar protests later, perhaps even the Insurrection Act. Third, domestic use of military can have corrosive effects on the troops, the relationship between federal and local state authorities, as well as the relationship between the military and civil society. For now, the key takeaways are that there isn't much these federalized National Guard troops will be able to do, and that might be the very reason why this is the step the president is taking tonight, rather than something more aggressive. I don't know. What do you think, folks? What do you think, folks? I don't. It's, we're all going to have our time, right? These people in the streets right now, they're doing the work. And it's going to come to all our cities. We knew they were going to go after sanctuary cities. We knew they were going to go after high immigration population centers. We knew this. So, know your rights. You have a right to remain silent, which is one of the most valuable rights you could possibly exercise. And other than that, look out for each other out there, okay? Bring milk. You got milk? It really helps when you get pepper sprayed. Like, really helps. Help other people. The rubber bullets, they're not so bad. But they are if you've never been hit with a rubber bullet, okay? I can't believe that we're seeing this on United States soil. But he talked about this all through the run-up to the election. So we're not surprised over here. Get it? MAGA, you voted for this shit? Yeah. You're not gonna come out of this without a scratch. You're already getting all your fucking FEMA revoked. All of it. They don't care about you.